Hey guys, Mr. Collum here with your next screencast. Probably one of the most difficult ones that you will do. The graphic organizer should be fairly easy for you to fill in because it's primarily just fill in the blank. But as far as the concept goes, you might struggle with a couple of these. So we're going to spend some time on Thursday or Friday, whenever we get to this, reviewing some of the stuff. So don't be stressed if after you get done filling this out, you're still a little bit confused as to what or how these business practices were carried out. The LEQ that we're on is LEQ number 6, How did big business change the workplace and give rise to labor unions? So we're going to look at some different business practices with this graphic organizer. You should be looking at this side that says new ways of doing business right at the top center, and we're going to be working from right to left. So the right hand corner is where we're going to start. All right, let's get started. The first thing, a new method of doing business. We talked about entrepreneur as one of your vocabulary words, and entrepreneurs-led business expansion. Okay, and if you look in your bubble there, as an entrepreneur, what did entrepreneurs do? They set up new businesses to make a profit. Set up new businesses to make a profit. Okay, that's anybody who's a business owner is an entrepreneur. So pretty basic stuff there. If we look in our arrow on our graphic organizer, to raise capital, entrepreneurs turn businesses into corporations. Okay, that's our next slide there. And if we look below that crowd of people on our graphic organizer, corporation is a business owned by who? Owned by investors. So you need to write the word investors in there. So an entrepreneur, someone who owns a business, they turn that into a corporation. No longer are they a single owner. It's now a corporation. So anybody who invests in the company buys stocks in the company. Okay, so they might say, I'm going to put $200 in this company. They are a partial owner of that company now. That is a corporation. And if we look in the business above the crowd of people, which looks like a house, but it's supposed to be a business, it says corporations limit the risk of investors because unlike business owners, they only lost what they put in. Unlike business owners, they only lost what they put in. Okay, so we have a difference here. A lot less risk investing in stocks because let's say you invest in a corporation, you're putting, let's say $1,000 I want to invest. I cannot go in the hole here. Okay, if the business does bad and fails, I lose my $1,000. That's it. If you are an entrepreneur, you have to take out loans to start up your business. Okay, and you have to buy pretty much everything. You have to buy all the supplies needed. You have to pay all the bills on your business. So if that business fails, you lose a lot of money. That loan that you took out, you still have to pay that. So you end up in debt. Okay, now we're going to get into the actual methods used by business owners back then. So we're heading down the graphic organizer. Now we're going to go from left to right. We're going to start with a pool. Okay, pools. Rather than letting the free market adjust prices, business owners made informal agreements about production levels and prices. So in your swimming pool that I have there on your graphic organizer, in pools, businesses make informal agreements about production levels and prices. So the first thing you should write, informal agreements. Next thing you should write, production levels, and the last blank, prices. And I'm going to be showing you some examples throughout to hopefully make you better understand what's going on here. And I'm going to be using gallons of milk as my example. I don't know why I chose that. It's just what I felt, I guess, was easiest to use. But the first example, I'm going to show you how a pool works. Okay, and we're going to look at the left side of your computer screen. And we're going to look at the effects of a free market, what normally happens, what you see every day. Okay, so if we look at what the free market effect is, on the left side we have the dandy price of a gallon of milk. Let's say it was $2.50. And let's say the Acorn was charging $3 for a gallon of milk. What is going to end up happening? Well, the free market effect would be that in order for the Acorn to compete and get people to buy their gallon of milk, they have to lower their price to $2.50. Because nobody's going to go to the Acorn if they have to pay $3 a gallon. They'll just run down to the Dandy Mart and save 50 cents. Okay, so the free market effect would force the Acorn to drop their price. How a pool works, if we look on the right side there, is the Dandy Mart and the Acorn would make an agreement between the two. Yes, we're competing against each other, but we want to make a lot of money here. So let's agree that we're both going to overcharge consumers at $3 a gallon. Yes, that's overcharging, but if we both charge it, then people have to pay that price. And that's what entrepreneurs, corporations did back then. They made an agreement. Hey, let's both overcharge people by this much. That way people are forced to overpay for the product. And they would make more money this way. Okay, so that's a pool. Your next business method is horizontal integration. And that you got to look in the horizontal arrow there. In horizontal integration, business owners try to, and that is buy out all of their competitors or run them out of business. Buy out all of their competitors or run them out of business. Okay, so two ways here horizontal integration work. The first way, very simple. Buying out their competition. You have to be a wealthy business owner to do this, but if the Dandy Mart was owned by a wealthy business owner, in order to take out the competition, they simply buy them, and that's what you see on the left side. Okay, the Dandy buys out the Acorn, they now no longer have competition. The more aggressive way, and the way that you probably have to have a lot more money to be able to do, is by running them out of business. What's the best way to run them out of business? To lower your prices. So if the Dandy Mart said, you know what, I'm going to charge $1.50 for a gallon of milk. The Acorn, the free market effect, may say they need to drop their prices, but financially they cannot do that. They're not wealthy enough. Okay, so what's going to happen is nobody in the right mind is going to go to the Acorn and pay double for the products. So people are going to go to the Dandy and buy their products. Nobody's going to go to the Acorn, and eventually the Acorn's going to go out of business because nobody's buying their products because they're a lot more expensive. Yes, with this method, you're going to lose a lot of money. The Dandy would lose a lot of money up front because they're probably breaking even. They're not making any profit. But if you are a business owner who has a lot of money, you can suffer for a little bit, and then once the Acorn goes out of business, then you're the only business, and you can raise your prices back up because people have to pay what you're charging. So the two ways, buying out their competition or running them out of business. That's horizontal integration. Moving right on your graphic organizer, we see vertical integration, the vertical arrow. In vertical integration, corporations control, you need to write the entire production process from raw materials to retail sales. The entire production process from raw materials to retail sales. That's vertical integration. Whoops. I hate when that happens. Okay. Now, here's your example here. So the idea here is you cut out the middleman so you can charge less for your product and run everybody out of business. So we're staying on gallon of milk. Okay, let's say the Acorn, they are selling milk, okay, and they have to pay for a trucking company to bring the milk. They have to pay for all of these middlemen. All they're doing is selling it and making that profit. The Dandy Mart takes a different approach. They open up their own dairy farms, they buy their own cows, and they buy their own milk trucks. So there's no middleman that they have to pay. And then they are the ones selling the product as well. Okay, so absolutely no middleman involved. What does that enable them to do? That means they have to pay less for the product to be put on the shelves, which means they can charge less for the product. If they're charging less for the product, everybody's going to go there to buy the product, and in turn, the Dandy Mart is going to run the Acorn out of business because, again, their prices are lower. The prices are lower because they cut out the middleman. Okay, they don't have to pay dairy farmers. They don't have to pay trucking companies. They've cut all that out. They own all of that. And again, you have to have a lot of money to be able to own all this stuff. But again, you're cutting out the middleman. They control the entire production process, pay less money in the end. Okay, hopefully you're not too confused there. But that's horizontal integration and vertical integration, the two differences. Now, if you flip over your graphic organizer, the center bubble top there, the government took a hands-off approach or a laissez-faire approach to business. which that is spelled on the screen here, laissez-faire, which means let them do. So the government let businesses do whatever they wanted. There was no regulation at all. Which led to, if we look on the right side, okay, which would lead to monopolies. Okay, we see the monopoly man there. So monopolies goes in that top box on your right hand side. And if we look directly under the monopoly man, the ideal setup during this time for those looking to get rich was to have a monopoly again. This is where a company or corporation controls most or all business in a particular industry. So you need to write most or all business in a particular industry. Most or all business in a particular industry is what you need to write. Okay, so we have a monopoly. A monopoly, Bill Gates was accused of having a monopoly before, I think in the early 2000s or late 90s, because he was really the only one that sold a certain computer product. And people felt that he controlled the entire industry, so people had to pay what he charged. If you have a monopoly, let's say you have, we're going to stick on gallons of milk. If you have a monopoly, you are the only person in the entire world who sells gallons of milk. So that you control that entire industry. So what the problem is with monopolies is that people can charge whatever they want for that product, because you cannot go anywhere else to get that product. They have absolutely no competition. They can charge what they want, which is going to hurt the consumer because they don't want to have to pay high prices. Competition is a good thing because people have to lower their prices to compete for people. With a monopoly, there's no competition, and they can raise their prices up. If we look directly left, okay, the top corner box, top left-hand corner box, we looked at monopolies. The other thing that laissez-faire approach led to was trusts. So you have to write trust in that box. Then we look underneath that group of people. Trusts is the first word you need to write in that blank. Trusts were similar to horizontal integration, except businesses have their own management, but they hand their stocks over to a holding company. So trust in the top blank, holding company in the bottom blank. And a board of trustees oversees the operation of the stocks. So pretty much what happens is you have a bunch of businesses, the same businesses. So this is like the Dandy Mart and the Acorn teaming up and pooling their money together and saying, we're going to, even though we're kind of competing, we're going to pool our money together, we're going to form a team, and we are going to, for instance, we're going to reduce our prices on things since we're combining our money now, and we're going to drive everybody else out of business. Okay, so this is, a trust is more of a team approach to driving others out of business. So the Dandy and the Acorn team up and they say, we want to drive the Pump and Pantry out of business. So we're going to team up, combine our money, drop our prices, and drive them out. Okay, so that's a trust. And that's a little more confusing, probably the most confusing of anything we'll talk about. Okay. All of these new methods were practiced by some of the wealthiest men in American history. Some considered these men as captains of industry, while others considered them robber barons. So some people said they're captains of industry, they're leading the way. Some people said they're robber barons, they're sly, they're greedy, they're taking others out of business. Okay, so some people looked at them as good, some people looked at them as bad. It's up to you to decide between these four gentlemen on the screen. We're going to start to do a little bit of research as to what practices that we just talked about that these gentlemen used, and whether you're going to decide whether they're captains of industry or actual robber barons. Okay. Last thing is, make sure you complete the Google form below this video in order to get credit.